done everything at Ebenezer that's ever been accomplished at all. And it's for his honor and his glory that Ebenezer's there. And we're about two things at Ebenezer, and that's about Jesus and the children. We recently baptized 4 children that got saved and got to know who Jesus is. Every child that comes through Ebenezer is told about Jesus, and we're honored that we're able to do that. Every child that leaves Ebenezer is the same thing in churches. The preacher preaches his heart out. He tells everybody that walks through these doors about him, but everybody that walks in does not get saved and does not become a child of the King. So it's with sadness and with honor, too, that this end of this month on the 22nd, one of my children's children that used to be at Ebenezer, I call them my children, their baby will be adopted by one of our foster families. I would ask that you pray for her. She's struggling with a lot of things that's going on in the world today and has lost her child. But I am thankful that we had a great Christian family that is able to adopt that child. I'm on schedule right now to do 22 adoptions this year. That is the most I've ever done in 1 year because I have 30-some children at Ebenezer at all times. And so doing the adoptions, I set up actually to do adoptions just for the children that lived at Ebenezer. But a lot of people have been calling me wanting to adopt, and so we now are licensing families outside of Ebenezer and taking babies right from the hospital. We taken 3 children this week. We took in a 9-year-old little boy, a 14-year-old sister to him, and we took a newborn baby right out of the hospital. So we'll be doing the same thing over here. We'll be licensing foster families here. In 1994, I started out with only 5 children, 5 girls, and I loved it. And I loved just doing everything. But God trusted me to build another home, and then another home, and then another home. So now I have 42 beds that are licensed now at Ebenezer. I have several empty beds due to lack of staff members. So I turned down a sibling of 3 children this week because I did not have enough house parents. Total with my foster families that I also have, and we license foster families within a 150-mile radius of us, we have 111 licensed beds total, from 5 beds to 111. And that is definitely overwhelming to me that God has entrusted me with this many children. It's sad to say that over 30 of those beds are empty because of staff members. So I would ask that you pray about, is God leading you to be part of Caleb's house over here? As a house parent, a social worker, those things being 2 hours away, I can't be here every day. So we are hiring and training new people to help us carry the burden that God's given us. Now, my husband and I were in the finance business before Ebenezer, and we was able to share Jesus with a lot of people that came in there. And we were blessed to be able to do that. But when we did things on our own, we could only catch a few things, a few men or women for Jesus. But when we followed God, as Peter did, when Peter went fishing on his own, how many fish did he catch? He didn't catch any. But when God told him to go fish on the other side, which I think was the left side, I could be wrong, look how many fish he caught. So when we followed God's leadership in fishing for the children that he had before us, we've had a lot, right at 1,000 children that has come through the doors of Ebenezer. Not only are we blessed to share Jesus with those children, but their parents need Jesus too. We have seen some of the parents actually saved because their child was at Ebenezer. And our church that we attend actually does showers and stuff for pregnant moms, and we try to love on them. Now, the lady that gave birth this week to that little baby and walked out of the hospital, we think that's awful. How could she do that? But I give her honor that she chose to give birth to that baby. So as we were singing the song, because he lives, that baby now is alive, and we're able to share Jesus with that baby as it grows. So we're thankful that mother chose birth instead of the other alternative. I want to tell you about a little girl that came to me when she was 4 years old, and that little girl is to my left. And you can kind of see that she looks a little sad. She is from Mexico. There is 12 children in that family. I was honored to have her and her sister that came to live with us for some time. The courts decide if these children can go back home to parents or not, and so the judge gives the parents a list of things they're supposed to do, whether it's get housing, maybe test free for drugs, a job, whatever they need to do. Well, the mom did what she was supposed to do, and she got these two girls back. So they were gone from me probably for several months, and we found out from the school that the little girl was not having the appropriate food at school. When she was with us, we learned she was a diabetic. And so we took classes because none of us really had experience in dealing with that. And so we learned how to meet her needs as a diabetic. So when she went back home, her older sister, which was a year and a half, I think, older than her, was actually giving her shots and trying to take care of her because her sister that was a little older than her became the mom to her. So that didn't go too well. We slipped school. We took food to school so she would have some proper snacks and stuff at school, but not getting them at home. Things got bad. So she ended up at Baptist Hospital and very, very fragile medical needs due to her diabetes. It was pretty obvious she couldn't go back home to mom again. So the nurse said, honey, we're going to look for an aunt or uncle or neighbor or cousin, somebody that you could go back home to. Do you have anywhere you could go that you would be safe? And she said, I don't have no uncle here. I don't have an aunt here. I don't have anywhere I could go. And she said, well, you think about it, and if you think of anybody that would keep you safe, let us know. So she said, the only place I've ever lived was Ebenezer Children's Home that I was safe, and I didn't have to worry about anything. Do you think I could go back there? So the lady called me and said, I have this little girl. This is her needs. We knew automatically who it was. Do you have room for her? And I said, bring her on. We'll come to the hospital to get her. So we took the little girl back, and she was very, very needy when we took her back. But the judge did order that we could find an adoptive family for her. And so I do a little thing with my kids when they're going to be adopted. What kind of dad would you like? What kind of mom would you like? Where would you like to live? And the only thing she would ever say is just somebody that could meet my diabetes, that would know how to take care of me so that I wouldn't die. And so we prayed about that, and she was adopted into a wonderful Christian family. But when she came back to me from the hospital, she came back a different child than the child that had left me. She had clumps of her hair that was pulled out of her head. She had bruises all over her body. Her hands were burnt where her mom had put them on the stove. And if you look real closely to her face today, there's a belt buckle print that's in her face. But I'm thankful that she's in a good Christian home today. She is 25 years old now, and this is her today. You can see the difference that one person, one family made in her life. And if all goes well as planned, she will graduate from Wilmington from the university this summer. So her life was changed because one person stood up to make a difference. She has worked for me some. She will come and talk to our children not to give up hope, because there is hope. One of the children that will also be adopted the 22nd of this month was a young girl that is now 17 years old. And everybody says, when they get that old, they can't be adopted. I said, where's that at in the Bible? That's always my answer when people say stuff. Where's that at in the Bible? I read that. So this little girl came to me, and she hated the whole world and everybody in it. You can imagine being a teenager and being jerked out of your home and, coming to a place that has structure and talks about Jesus every day and has rules, and she didn't like it. So one night she ran away. She took several of my small children with her and put them in danger. So the police had to be called, and it was definitely a time. So several professionals told me to give up on her. I also had her younger brother there, and that there was no hope for her, that she was very disrespectful. She was a runaway, and, on and on and on. So why would I want to keep her? But there was something about her that I just felt like all those walls were built up of hatred and not trusting anybody. But if I could just get those walls to start falling down, I knew that there was something good inside her. So I didn't give up on her, although a lot of people wanted me to. So she is one of them that will be adopted on the 22nd of this month, and she's 17 years old. So it doesn't matter if they're babies to 18 years old or whatever, we still tell them that with God all things are possible, and not listen to man, and don't give up on yourself, because God has a plan for you. I saw her at our community revival. We have a big revival going on this week, and it's in our big tent, and I saw her there, and 3 of my little kids that used to be with me that was just there for a short time came up, and they were there, and the little teenager was having some problems, but this little girl said, she's at school. I get to see her at school, so I'm trying, Miss Jean. I'm trying to tell her to make the right choices. So that made my heart feel good. Her little brother that's, he'll be 12, I guess, this year. He got saved Friday night, which I did not get to go Friday night due to a speaking engagement. He got saved at that revival, too, so both of those children now are saved in good Christian homes. But I'm going to show you a short video and just challenge you to pray about this. And I know everybody here can't foster or adopt, but you can be part of the foster care world through supporting Caleb's home, supporting people in your community that are foster families. But I want you to look, when he plays Nobody's Child, I want you to look at these children, because I could put a name to every child in this video that relates to Ebenezer. So, Nobody's Child.
I'm not a bad kid. I've done nothing wrong, but I'm a sad kid with no place to call home. I've been living in this lonely room, and I've been praying for someone to choose me. They all want a baby, not a 12-year-old girl. They think I'm too old to fit into their worlds. I wish they'd take the time, but they change their minds. Nobody's child, all alone and thrown away, just a file in a social worker's case. I'm not the only one, there's so many like me. All we need's a place to grow in a loving family until that day. Nobody's child.
saw the different situations that children come into our care, and the one that I think of quite often is the one where the child is cold. We see that all the time. Children come into us, and they've lived in homes with no heat. They've lived in homes with refrigerators full of roaches instead of food. One of the little boys one day told me for when he grew up, I said, "What do you want to be?" And he said, "I want to have one thing when I grow up." I said, "Okay, I want to have a refrigerator." I thought, well, that's kind of odd for a little child to say that, but he said, "I want a special refrigerator." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I want a refrigerator that when I open the door, it actually has food in it instead of roaches. I don't want to live in a house that when I go turn the flip on the wall, the lights actually come on and there's heat in that house." So one of the things, and some of you ladies may be quilters, you may know how to make quilts. One of the things, we have a group of ladies in our community that makes quilts for our children. So when they come into Ebenezer, they get a quilt, which may seem odd to you. They get a pillowcase that on the pillowcase says Jeremiah 29:11. That's actually one of the verses that Ebenezer always teaches the kids. A pastor gave me this little book. He saw it. It's got my notes in it. And it has Jeremiah 29:11. And so I was in town one day, and I ran into this lady, and she said, "You're Miss Jean?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You know who I am?" And I was kind of looking at her like, kind of look familiar, but I see a lot of people. She said, "I'm one of the quilters." And she said, "I'm one of the ladies that makes quilts to send to y'all." And I said, "We're so thankful for the quilts. They're absolutely beautiful, have different designs on them, and they're always perfect for that particular child." She said, "I didn't really know if they really made a difference, because it's like, really, does kids like quilts?" But she said, "I was a teacher at school when I retired." She said, "I had one of your boys in class." And she said, "So one day I told all the kids to bring something to school they never wanted to lose that was special to them." So the little girls brought their dolls and their stuffed animals and different things, and the little boys come with their trucks and different things. And then she said, "It was your little boy's turn." And he walks up in front of the classroom, and he has a quilt in his arms. And everybody's kind of snickering, like, "Ooh, he's got a quilt." But he stood up and he said, "I'm a foster child, and I live at Ebenezer Children's Home. And the first thing when I got there, they gave me a quilt and a pillowcase, a stuffed animal, and a Bible." And he said, "This quilt," and I can't remember what the quilt had on it, if it was cars or it was some kind of theme that he liked. He said, "Because when I came to Ebenezer, me and my brothers were always cold. We didn't have heat in our house, but when I leave Ebenezer, I get to take this quilt with me. So we won't be cold anymore." Not only was that quilt special, I asked the teacher, she said, "You won't believe this." She said, "That was one of the quilts that I had made." How did that happen? So it's the little things that we do that really means a lot to the children. One of my girls that Andy and I were at her wedding, and we're like her second mama now. She said the thing that made a difference in her life, they had been in several group homes, her and her siblings. And she said, but one night when I first came to Ebenezer, Miss Jean said it was time to take a shower. And I said, "Okay, when does the timer start?" And I said, "What timer are you talking about?" She said, "You know that timer that you set, that you only have 5 minutes to take a shower, and I have to get out, when does it start?" And I said, "Honey, we don't have a timer here." I said, "You could take a shower as long as you want to. You could even take a bubble bath." And she said, "I knew that Ebenezer would be different because I could take a bath as long as I wanted to." And I think that is something that meant a lot to her. So it's the little things. I am honored next Saturday. A lady actually gave us her beach house at the beach. And so I will be honored to take about 12 girls with me to the beach for a week next week, and some of them will experience getting to go to the beach for the first time. And it's amazing. I remember one little girl, on her bucket list at their age. She had a bucket list. She just wanted to see a palm tree before she died. And when we went to the beach and she saw a palm tree for the first time, she started crying. So it's the little things that we do for these kids that really makes a difference in their lives. So I want y'all to pray and share the burden of Ebenezer, that we need hands to love on these children. I can't love on all of them like I could the first 5 that we had. I can't be there every day for them. I can't help them with their homework. And so we're going to need people to help with homework. Some of our kids are 2 and 3 years behind in school because they've been moved from one place to the other. I get in a lot of situations, because I might have a little baby on my hip, or I might be having this child or that child, and my teenage girls lets me tell this story. In 1994, we got the 5 beautiful little girls, and it came 1995, and it got to be Easter time. And this lady called up, and she said, "I hear you finally got Ebenezer opened up." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You got girls up there?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, are they going to look pretty for Easter?" I said, "Well, ma'am," I said, "they're going to look pretty. They won't get new dresses because we didn't have money to buy potatoes with." I said, "So I definitely can't go buy 5 new Easter dresses and shoes and all that." But I said, "Some of my friends are going to give me their kids' hand-me-downs, and they'll be nice, and they'll look nice." She said, "Well, I own a store." She said, "Why don't you bring them down? I'll just give all of them a new dress." I said, "Oh, wow, that'd be awesome." So I load them up. I take them down to the store, and they're all trying on all these dresses, and they're so excited. Well, one of the teenage girls come to me and said, "Miss Jean, those 2 women over there is talking about you." I said, "They ain't talking about me. I don't even know those women." I'm kind of looking. She said, "It's not nice either." I said, "But they don't know me." I said, "Go try that blue dress on. Let me see what it looks like on you. So if somebody's talking about you, you have a right to eavesdrop, don't you?" So I kind of walked around, got a little closer to them. About that time, the door opens. 2 other ladies come in, and I hear these 2 ladies say, "You need to go to the back of that store." Said, "There's this short woman back there." Said, "She's got 5 girls," and said, "You look at every one of them, tell they got different daddies. So we know what kind of life she lives now, don't we?" Do y'all think it's funny? They should have said, "Ma'am, I see you have 5 beautiful girls. I go to Grace Baptist Church. We have a great youth program there. We'd love for you to bring the girls." You know, I wanted to say, "Well, honey, y'all got different mamas too, but ain't none of your business." I didn't say nothing. You know, I had 2 blondes. I had a biracial girl on a walker. I had 2 redheads. I mean, you know, none of them look like me. But I'm still involved with every one of them's life except for one to this day. And so I'm honored and proud to do that. I'm going to show you a little bit so that y'all really, truly know that Caleb's house is going up. So I'm going to show you a short video, and I don't know if the pastor shared with you, Pastor Wishon's burden, the pastor, the church that actually owned this land. Mr. Wishon actually lived in a children's home himself. So his dream had always been to see a home on top of this mountain that his church owned this land on. A man in Wilkes County that knew me, that knew him, an old fort, was talking to him one day, and he's asking him to pray for him. And he said, "Well, I don't know how to go about doing it, but we're going to build a home up there." And he said, "Well, go talk to Miss Jean. She'll tell you all about it." So he came and talked to me, and I told him what all he'd need, and he was like, "It's a lot." I said, "It is a lot." So he came back and said the church had prayed and wanted to know if Ebenezer would build a house up there. And so they gave us that land, and so we are in the process of raising money to get that house complete. So if you'll show Caleb's house for a minute, we'll talk about it. prayed for over 20 years for that house, and that's why it's called Caleb's home, because from Joshua, you know, Caleb prayed for that mountain, so that's why it's called Caleb's home. And of course, we don't do anything without praying. If you don't know Mr. Rishon, he's the one in the overalls. He's pastor of the church in Old Fort, and so that's just some of our board members and different people that we were all praying that God would show us what to do up here. That was the groundbreaking that we had. It was really, really cold and windy that day. It was really cold when we broke ground. Had a lot of dirt to move up there, that's for sure. And that was just really a few weeks ago. It is a 10,000 square foot house, so it's really big. The reason it's so big is because we have to have offices there for the social worker. We have to have a private place for children to visit their parents as we're working with their parents to see if they can go back home to them. So not have an office or anything up here. We had to build it a lot larger so we could have those visitation rooms. And of course, that's our verse that we give to all the kids when they come in. The walls are going up. Some of you may ask, how can I help? You know, it's like I tell people when you first got married and people gave you your wedding showers and different things because you had no pots and pans or washcloths or dishes or anything, we're going to have all those needs plus 9 kids. So we come with a new empty house and 9 kids that we're going to have to supply their needs for. So some of you sitting here may be great painters. You can come and help us paint all those walls. You may own an electrical company that can come and help us do electrical work, or you may own a furniture business. We're going to have beds and all that kind of stuff for these kids. So just pray about how God can use you to help with that. You may want to volunteer, like I said earlier, to help with homework or different needs, to just be a mentor to our children and to encourage them that God has a special plan for them and not to give up hope with that. So the sky's the limit, as I kind of tell people, of the different needs, you know, that we will have. So, you know, think about that. Some of these kids probably will be in some of the schools that some of you kids go to. Some of you may be teachers in here. You may be teaching some of the kids that will actually be in Caleb's house. When we pray, we meet in our chapel and pray. And we pray for our kids that are at Ebenezer, our kids that have been at Ebenezer, and for the future kids that will come through the doors of Ebenezer. Because this will be our, when we get this, we're building one in Lenore also at the same time, the same print. This will be our 9th home. And at 72 years old, these will be my last 2 homes I'll build, unless God has other plans. But I'm honored, and I'm so thankful God's given me the health and strength to do what I've been able to do for 29 years. But I do need your arms and your help to continue to carry on the mission that God has given us. And it doesn't matter. One time we had 3 potatoes and no money to go buy food. But God sent in, before the day was over 600 pounds of potatoes. And we just got on our knees and prayed and asked God for potatoes. We didn't put it on Facebook. We didn't do none of that stuff. And when COVID was going on, I met and tried to encourage my children. We were going to be okay. And we met in our chapel. I said, do any of you kids have any questions? Is everybody okay? Well, a little girl raises her hand. And she said, Miss Jean, I just have one question. I said, okay, honey. She said, are we going to have enough toilet paper? But when you think about it, I have 50 employees, 30-some kids, and that's all they heard on the news. Are we going to have enough toilet paper? Well, you know what? I told her, we got the children together and we prayed. And I said, God, you know the need from potatoes to toilet paper. Would you see fit that these kids didn't have to worry about toilet paper? And this is the truth. A company called me I've never heard of, and they sent us a truckload full of toilet paper that we're still using today. So, you know, do we have the money to build this 10,000 square foot house? Nope. Does God have it? Yes. So I don't worry, because I always go back to my potatoes and I go back to the toilet paper and I say, God's got this. God bless you.
Thank you for not just talking about a problem, but doing the hard thing, do something about it. Last several years, we've seen a few of our members take on the challenge of becoming foster parents and then adoptive parents, and we've gone through that process with them, and it was a hard, frustrating process because they were working with DSS, and I don't want to just knock DSS. Some very good people that work there that love kids, but they have to operate in a system that they are told what they can and can't do, and that system is nothing but frustrating. I sat with our families up there at the courthouse hours on end, sometimes days, waiting to get a case before a judge, only to be told at the end of the day, you're going to have to reschedule. It's not going to happen today, and you know how patient I am with things, and you know. I've done a lot of work with DSS, was asked just this last year if I would sit on a committee to try to encourage foster parents to work, but I turned them down, and I turned them down because it's hard for me to encourage someone to go into that system seeing how they were treated as foster parents, and have been looking for a better option and praying about a better option. This is what I can tell you. Jesus said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me." He did not say, "I want you to cause little children to suffer." The suffering was on the part of those disciples. They were the ones that were to put forth the efforts and to look beyond their comfort zone, look beyond their priorities and what they thought to be important, to take the extra step to do what they could to bring children to the Lord. And I want to challenge you this morning that we need to do that. We ought to do that. You can't, I don't think you can sit there and look at that video and see those faces. And I want to tell you, those issues are going on in McDowell County. Those things are going on around us. I don't know the present number. If the director of DSS was here, they would tell us it's been this way for years. Usually they have 300 to 400 kids needing placement, and they've got room for about 60. And so we know that in our community there are children that are in need. And I don't know what you're going to do. I'd like to be part of the answer to that. I'd like not just to sit around and say, well, you know, parents ought to be this and they ought to be that. You know what? They should be. They ought to be. I'll agree with you. But it seems like we spend more time talking about that than we do this. But over here in the wings, there's a little boy and there's a little girl that did not ask to have the parents that they have. That did not ask to be brought into this world, into that circumstance and that situation. And I can tell you this, that little kid needs food. That little kid needs clothing. That little kid needs somebody that they can trust in their life, that they can say, you know what, I can depend on them, and they're going to love me. They're going to care for me. They're going to be there for me. Now, this is what I can tell you. I believe Grace Baptist Church could be that. I believe you and I could be that in some fashion, some role, and I want for us to be. All right, I want for us to be. This morning, I think we all just come to the altar. We all just gather here, and I think there's a few things we can pray for. Number one, we ought to pray for these children. We ought to uplift these children to the Lord. I promise you, the Lord loves them. The Lord cares for them. Then we ought to pray for this ministry, Miss Davis. We ought to pray for the Ebenezer Christian Children Home Ministry. In our own community now, Caleb's house is being built. And yes, Brother Wishon can tell you the story how that 20 years ago he started praying. And many times he thought it was going to happen, only to be met with frustration, and it didn't happen. He did not give up on that. He just kept praying and praying and praying. Right here in our own community, we're going to have a wonderful resource like this. And we need God's direction in what our involvement's going to be in that. How we can be a part of that and be a blessing to them and be a service to them. So we need to pray about that. We need to pray about ourselves. It's interesting, we've been highlighting this verse now for the last several weeks, and that's one of the verses that was put up on there. We need to ask the Lord of the harvest to send laborers into the field. For the harvest surely is ready, but the laborers are few. Could you be a laborer in this? Could you be a laborer in this? I know this. God's still sending people into the harvest. He's still sending laborers. Let's ask Him to do that. Why don't we just gather this morning?